reincarnation? And if so, how does it work?
Do we believe in reincarnation? Yeah. So the answer is yes. And the question is how it works is not so simple. That's definitely not simple. You know, the conception, the general, if there's some type of conception, the general understanding of reincarnation, the way most people think about it, most people think about reincarnation, and unfortunately a lot of, people that, even Jews that talk about reincarnation, even sometimes, unfortunately, rabbis, are just really perpetuating things that are not what we believe in, because they're just picking up from the general consensus of what reincarnation is. The general consensus of reincarnation is something similar to this idea, saying that there's a continuation of lives. Every life we're working throughout another reincarnation, and then depending on the level that we reach at the end of our life, that's depending on the level of the transmigration of our soul, enter into the next form of life, and like this will continue the process until we reach some type of spiritual enlightenment, and we'll be freed from this wheel of life. It's not so simple at all. It's not so simple at all, and primarily it's not so simple. This is why the Kabbalistic understanding is much more nuanced and much more deep, is because simultaneously we also say that a person experiences Gan Eden, paradise. So I don't want to get literal, but if you think about this, after a person passes on, let's say Chaim Yankel, so 120 passes on, he reaches a certain stage in his reincarnation processes. Where does that soul go? Now, classically, you'll say that the soul goes to Gan Eden, to paradise, to heaven, which means in a spiritual realm. Reincarnation says the soul returns back into this world. So where does the soul go? Or where is the soul? Some souls go to Gan Eden, some souls come back into this world. Like, how does it exactly work? And this is a question that was asked to one of the earlier Rishonim, to the Rajba, Reb Shalom ben Adaris, the Chuvas Rajba, in the 1300s. It was a question because this issue became very prominent at that time. A lot of the Mekubalim, a lot of the Kabbalists were speaking about the reincarnation, especially the Rebbe of the Rajba, the Ramban, and prior to that, very 100 years before the publication of the revealing of the Zohar, Sefer Blair was the first one to speak openly about this idea of reincarnation of souls. And there was a big debate. A lot of the Spanish scholars got involved. Reb Sadia Gaon, even before in the 10th century, wrote about this in one of his. But this is a question to understand. So I'm going to tell you what the Arizal, the Holy Ari, revealed in terms of what reincarnation is, which is very nuanced and very complex, but very profound and in a way even simple. The Arizal wrote, Reb Chaim Vital wrote a book, one of the gates of it's called Shar Gilgul, the gate of reincarnation. So in Shar Gilgul, this is the way that Ari develops this idea. And we have to go back to the beginning of the creation story. The beginning of the creation story of Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve. So there's a story of Adam and Chava being created, Adam and Eve being created in their first form of the creation, sort of what occurs, what we call in chapter 1, versus the creation story that occurs in chapter 2. In chapter 1, they're created diapertsuf, and they're created two Zachar and Nekeva Baris, a male and female. He created them, which means they're created some type of androgynous character, half male, half female, back to back. And in this image, before the eating from the tree of knowledge, and the tree of knowledge, there's the Eitz Hadas, which is the tree of knowledge, which is duality, good and evil, versus the tree of life, which is the tree of unity. Before eating from the tree of knowledge, they existed in a state. The way the sages write about them is that they exist in a state that they stretch from one end of the earth to the other. Another image that is that their fingers and their hands were attached like a paw, like a web. Their skin was transparent, was translucent, like nail. They exist in a state of perfect unity. Okay, They're Tzir Kabbal Kadosh Baruch Hu. They were created in a state of unity and oneness. Adam Achava, this being, Adam and Eve, we'll just call him Adam because that's Adam Achava is included. Eve is included within Adam. So Adam, not male or female, Adam. This Adam is the parent of all, genetically, of every human being that will, arise from him, her. And it's also the spiritual parent of all the souls that will come from that will arise, all human souls. This also says in the Medrash. It says in the Medrash Nasai this idea that Adam is not the genetic parent of civilization, but also the spiritual parent. Okay. Adam, before the eating of the tree of knowledge, is a singularity, is one. Once Adam / Chava eat from the tree of knowledge, the tree of the opposite, the tree of duality, they shrink. And if you had to just sort of imagine this, they become pixelated. So let me give you another image. I don't know if this is going to work. There's the human being. There's a structure of the human being. The structure of the human being is that the human has a certain form. The form of the person is the totality of the form, but then there's the particularities of the form. In the particularities of the form, there is 613 body parts. So there are 248 body parts and 365 main vein and arteries. Okay, that's the specifics in the body. Just like that is true on the level of body, that's true also on the level of soul. There's Taryag, there's 613 sparks of souls. Obviously, the 613 correspond to the 613 mitzvahs, right? Commands. So there is 600 body parts that have 600 soul potentials that are activated through the 613 mitzvahs, 613 positive mitzvahs. When Adam falls after the eating of the tree of knowledge, the structure of the 613 breaks apart the 613 parts, pieces of a puzzle. This is very generic because it's really 613 within 613 within 613, but let's just give the very general system. It divides itself into 613. Now, every subsequent life, the soul, let's say the first person born after the eating from the tree of knowledge, let's say we'll assume, will get a soul from the right hand of Adam. Okay, which means we'll get one of the 613 parts. Will become that person's soul. That means if they get a soul from the right hand of Adam, what that would mean is that they have genetically, and also because of their environment and the culture that they're born into, they have a situation that is conducive for them to articulate the right hand of Adam, the soul of the right hand of Adam. What does that mean? I'll give you a generic understanding. Let's say they're born into a wealthier family that are balei chasadim, that are charitable, and therefore they're givers. So this soul will enter into the body of a family that will allow for this soul to shine by giving. That particular aspect of the soul, which is from the right hand of Adam, will become the individual soul of the person. But let's be clear. This person that has a soul from the right hand of a particular soul from the right hand of Adam doesn't just have the right hand soul. Otherwise, you would only have a right hand. He has also left hand, he has left legs, and right hand, and he has eyes and ears, etc. He has an entire structure of the body. Because every single part of the 613 parts has an entire structure of 613, which means it's like a holographic image of each other. So there's a little Adam in every single 613 within this 613, within 613, within 613. You're following this formation? Which means the predominant soul quality that enlivens this person, let's call this person Chaim, will be this part from the 613 parts. The right hand, which means he will do a lot of things in his life, but he will be drawn always towards chesed, towards giving, because his soul type, his soul signature, his soul, what Chazal called the Zahir Tfei, what shines by him most, with the light of the soul that shines by him mostly, is connected to the right hand of Adam. Now there's going to be a flip side to that as well. There's going to be something that's positive, which means this Chaim is going to be a very naturally giving person. But there's also going to be the left side of that, which is like the shadow side of that, which is therefore they're very not good with discipline. They love to give, they always love to be open and to giving, but discipline is not a good thing for them. They don't know how to be disciplinary. But on the other hand, it hurts them because they don't have to be disciplined. Or they don't have to be a little bit, stricter. So if this Chaim had awareness of his life, he would realize that he is most alive when he is articulating that particular aspect of his soul, and he's most challenged by the flip side of that same soul type. And if he's a person that works on himself, he will develop the positive, because those are the areas that he feels most connected to, and he will overcome the negative as much as he can. Okay? And that's every single person. That's just an analogy of one person. Every single person is given with a particular soul type. The soul type comes from within the great soul of Adam. You have to shine with your beauty, with your light of the soul type that you have. If it's the right hand, the right head, the right feet, whatever it is, you're a doer, you're intellectual, whatever that area is, you're musical, whatever that area is, you have to shine through that thing and recognize the positive is pushing you in the direction towards the positive, and the negative is pushing you also in the direction to the negative. You have to overcome them. After 120, what happens after 120? Since this person Chaim, connected to the right hand of Adam and overcame the left side, but they never connected to the right foot within the right hand of Adam, or the right part of the brain within the right hand of Adam. Remember, it's a full structure, right? It's a holographic image that has all of them. So that what happens in the afterlife is as follows. All your memory, just like in life, when you ask someone, who are you? Or if you think about yourself, who are you? You'll see that, yes, I have a lot of thoughts and a lot of feelings, a lot of impressions, a lot of experiences, but there's a individuation. There's a certain type that you are. There's a certain particular way of you being in this world. That way of you being in this world is your particular soul. So all the memory and all your experiences, your entirety of self, is superimposed on that particular part of the soul. And after 120, that part of the soul does not reincarnate into the next body. That's the part of the soul that goes into Gan Eden. So let's say you have a father that passed away, and you remember him as a very particular person with very particular memories and a very unique knetch to his personality, unique type of personality. That soul that exists within your father never returns back into this world, into the physical world, because it already achieved its tikkun. That's what we say after 12 months of saying Kaddish. We'll say this soul's already finished its completion. And the memory, therefore, is stored in Gan Eden, in a paradise, in a transcendent world, not in the physical realm. Also in the physical realm, but not embodied. And what reincarnates now is the parts of the soul of, let's say, your father or this person's Chaim that were not tapped into during life, because that was not his mission. His mission was not to tap into every single part of their soul. The mission was to tap into their particular part of their soul. It's interesting that sometimes a person becomes very sick, and you see sometimes people that are sick and they emerge out of their sickness, they sort of switch gears in their life. So Dari says that that's possible because your tikkun was already achieved in this person that got sick. So their particular strain of soul was already elevated. and really the person had to pass on, and now they're giving another lease of life because another strand of soul has to be. It's almost it's like a Gilgul Machayim, like they're experiencing a new form of reincarnation during this life. But generally, that moves on into the next life, and then other parts of the soul reincarnate into other lives. So here's a very delicate statement. We're saying, on the one hand, you were yes in a previous life, but you don't have any memory of your past life, not because there's some type of mystery that Hashem makes you forget everything, because where does it say that you forget everything what happened in your past life? The reason is because you were just in a very, to use a modern term, you were just in a very subconscious level in a previous life. But on a conscious level of memory, you are not there. Your new life is a new expression of the soul that was never expressed in a previous existence. And every subsequent life, another element of the soul is constantly being revealed until we reach all its tikkunim. And this is the process. So it's very different than the classical way of understanding reincarnation. It is possible that sometimes that souls, so that's a general form of reincarnation. It is possible sometimes that souls means the entirety of the soul will reincarnate into other form, into humans, with memory, or at least potential for memory. Those could be, let's say, souls that are already matukan, already elevated, and they sometimes come down. Usually, they come down, God forbid, in children that are sick or not. Some children are born that they don't have a capacity to develop their soul. Like, what does it mean to develop their soul? They're like, God forbid, invalids, or they have no way to express it, and they live for very short periods of time. So it's possible, according to certain Kabbalim, that it's possible that these souls were already perfect souls. They're already elevated in their past lives, and they just enter into family units, because every soul that exists within a family unit, your brother, your sister, your mother, your parents, they're all part of the same unit. It doesn't mean that you're married to the same person. It could be in that life it was your mother, your sister, etc. But everything is part of that same incarnations through different lifetimes, because this cluster of souls perfected itself now in the right hand of Adam, and now it's turning into the left hand of Adam, and then the right foot of Adam, and the left foot, and in subsequent lives they're generally reincarnating together in souls. And that's another form of reincarnation where actually the entirety of the soul can enter. It's also possible. I mean, reincarnation is a very big topic. It's a very big topic, and it's a really in-depth topic, and shouldn't be talked about lightly. But there is another thing that's called more, which is transmigration, which is different, which is souls reincarnating from one form of life into another form of life. Which over there, it is a form of what we spoke about a little before of Gehenna, of the hell experience. That is possible, where the full memory of the person's past will transmigrate into another form of life to unlearn something. Where then in that situation, the fullness of the memory of the person past exists within another form of life, and that's part of this experience. The struggle to express itself, and it cannot. And that's the way it elevates itself. But that's a different, and there's various different forms of reincarnation. But that's the general structure of reincarnation. That'll be the answer to the question, yes, of how this works and how is it consistent.
Thank you. There's so much to be said on these things, and I want to remind anybody who's listening that this isn't a book that the Rav wrote called Jewish Book of Life Afterlife that deals with all things Torah with the afterlife and reincarnation, and these very esoteric and fascinating ideas that are very much a part of our Torah teachings.
Correct.